A millionaire agreed to a blind date for his friend, but fell in love at first sight. Late winter afternoons in Chicago carried a particular kind of chill, sharp, uninviting, and unapologetic. The wind threaded itself between the towering glass buildings, dragging gray clouds behind it. On the 34th floor of Coltech, one of the country's leading medical tech companies, silence reigned. Ethan Cole, 36, sat behind a dark wood desk, the glow from his laptop casting faint reflections across his clean-cut face. Numbers lined the quarterly report. Revenue was up 14%, but his expression remained still, unreadable. Success to Ethan had become numb. It no longer whispered ambition. It only echoed emptiness. Every win felt like a task completed, not a dream fulfilled. Emotion? That had been shelved 3 years ago, the day she walked out without looking back. His phone buzzed, interrupting the quiet. Ben lit up the screen. Ethan frowned, hesitated, then answered. "Ethan, my favorite human, you gotta save me." Ben's voice rang out, rushed and playful, as if the stakes were higher than they probably were. "Save you from what?" Ethan asked dryly, already bracing for chaos. He knew Ben well, the only friend from college he still spoke to. "I've got a double date tomorrow night, but guess what? Production team just pulled me into a last-minute shoot in Seattle. If I bail, this sweet girl's gonna think I ghosted her. You just need to show up, eat, chat a little, and head out. Easy." Ethan exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple as his gaze drifted toward the city lights. He hated these things, stiff conversations, small talk, pretending to care. "I don't have time for this." One night, man, one dinner. She's a vet, works at an animal rescue shelter, super sweet, funny, and definitely not the type you roll your eyes at. Just trust me. The word vet made Ethan pause. Different, not like the corporate types that usually surrounded him. Silence stretched between them, filled by the wind howling beyond the glass. "Fine," Ethan said at last, his voice low, edged with reluctant defeat. "Yes, I'll text you her photo and the restaurant. You're a legend." The call ended. Ethan leaned back in his chair, eyes wandering toward the glittering skyline. He didn't know it yet, but that one reluctant yes was about to rewrite everything he thought he knew about life, about connection, and about love. The following evening, snow fell quietly over the cobblestone streets of Chicago's Old Town. Soft golden lights spilled from the windows of cozy restaurants, glinting against the wet pavement. Ethan Cole stepped out of a sleek black SUV, wearing a tailored overcoat and neatly knotted tie. Impeccable, polished, and utterly distant. The restaurant Ben had texted was just a few blocks away, but Ethan chose to walk. He told himself it was to clear his head, but even he wasn't sure what exactly needed clearing. As he turned down a narrow side street, voices drifted toward him, raised, though not quite angry. "This is a medical bag, not a suitcase. You're seriously charging extra for this?" A woman's voice, sharp but edged with humor rather than rage. A woman in a navy blue coat, her bag slung across one shoulder, stood facing a taxi driver. Her hair was tied high, strands escaping in the cold wind. Her cheeks were flushed pink from the chill. "You don't like it, lady. Walk," the driver snapped, clearly annoyed. Ethan hesitated, about to walk past, but something in the woman's stance, spine straight, unwavering gaze, made him stop. "Is there a problem here?" His voice cut through the air, low, calm, commanding. Both turned toward him. The woman blinked in mild surprise, then smiled playfully. "Well, look at you, Sir Overcoat, saving damsels from grumpy cab drivers." She gestured toward her bag. "No worries, just a little disagreement. The driver thinks I'm carrying an entire animal hospital in here." Ethan studied her for a moment, then pulled out his wallet and handed the driver a crisp $100 bill. "Will this cover it? Keep the change." The man grumbled, but took the bill and drove off. The woman folded her arms, eyeing Ethan. "I could have handled that myself, but thanks." Ethan gave a slight nod. "Figured I'd save us both the hassle." He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Wait, let me guess. You're the stand-in boyfriend for the evening, right?" He paused, turning to study her more carefully. "You're Harper Lin?" "Bullseye," she grinned. "And you must be Ethan Cole, the man Ben described as too busy to breathe but secretly soft-hearted under all that CEO armor." She started walking, speaking over her shoulder. "Come on, I'm starving, and Lucien isn't exactly known for their patience." For a moment, Ethan just stood there, surprised by her ease. Harper didn't flinch at his name, didn't fawn or fumble. She was completely at ease, unfiltered, natural. And though he had reminded himself this was just a social favor, Ethan couldn't ignore the subtle shift inside him, like a door he'd long locked had cracked open, just a little. Lucien was nestled at the corner of a quiet old street, warm golden light spilling from its tall windows. Inside, it was a space of quiet elegance, dark wood furniture, soft crystal chandeliers, and the faint murmur of live jazz floating from a piano in the far corner. Ethan and Harper were led to a table by the window, the city's falling snow glimmering softly just beyond the glass. He pulled out her chair, a polite gesture etched from years of habit, but strangely unfamiliar in this kind of setting. "Thank you," Harper said with a gentle smile, unwrapping her scarf and setting down her bag. She glanced at the menu casually, not seeming too concerned. "Torn between the salmon and the ribs? But salmon sounds healthier, right?" she joked, giving him a playful wink. Ethan raised a brow. "You're a vet. Shouldn't you pick the heart-smart option?" Harper laughed, a sound so genuine and light it turned a few heads nearby. "Oh, clearly you've never spent a night shift elbow-deep in a crate of stray cats. After that, we don't crave quinoa, we crave meat." Ethan found himself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in what felt like years. "How long have you worked at the rescue?" 4 years." She rested her chin on her hand, eyes glowing. "Before that, I got an offer from a huge private vet chain. Triple the pay, offices like 5-star hotels. I turned it down." Ethan blinked. "Why?" "Because they refused to treat animals without owners or those who couldn't pay up front." Her voice wasn't angry, just resolute. "I couldn't live in a system that put profit above compassion." He didn't respond right away. He knew exactly what kind of model she meant because he helped design it. "You believe you can change that?" he asked, not mocking, but truly curious. Harper nodded. "Not the whole world, but I can change the world of one injured dog, one abandoned kitten, and that's enough for me." Ethan leaned back in his chair, watching her. She wasn't trying to impress him. She wasn't performing. She was simply living what she believed, and somehow that made him feel both exposed and grounded. When their meals arrived, she softened her voice a little. "I know you're not a fan of these kinds of dinners. Ben warned me." Ethan gave a small nod. "I don't do well in social rituals. They always feel performative." "And tonight?" He paused, then answered quietly. "Still performative, but surprisingly tolerable." Harper laughed again, this time softer, as if she too didn't want to break whatever had settled between them. When dessert arrived, a shared chocolate mousse Harper insisted on splitting, she rested her chin on her hand again, studying him like she was trying to solve a charming mystery. "You're not what I expected. Maybe Ben was wrong, or maybe you're just one of a kind." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, then set his spoon down. "I think I'm not who I usually am tonight." Outside, snow continued its gentle descent. Inside, amidst candlelight and the hush of piano notes, something inside Ethan began to shift. Not dramatically, not obviously, but just enough to feel it crack, the beginning of a thaw. Dinner ended later than expected. Outside Lucienne, the streets had quieted, save for the occasional clinking of glasses and doors closing behind the last few patrons. Snow continued to fall in a steady hush, blanketing the city in soft white light. Ethan walked beside Harper, hands in his coat pockets, eyes occasionally drifting toward the woman at his side, her long coat brushing against her boots, her red scarf catching snowflakes as she scuffed them playfully with her shoe. "I don't usually eat at places like that," Harper said, glancing at the warm glow behind them. Felt like stepping into another universe. "And you shattered it by ordering ribs and threatening to sue if they overcooked them," Ethan replied, his voice low and even. Harper laughed. "Exactly. Someone's got to keep things grounded." They strolled down the quiet street. Bare trees shivered in the wind, storefronts now dark and shuttered. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It felt oddly comforting. Harper tilted her head toward him. "Tonight wasn't so bad, was it?" Ethan nodded, his eyes settling on her snow-dusted hair. "Not bad. Actually, surprisingly nice." She studied him as though peeling back layers only she could see. "Do you let people get close, Ethan?" He didn't answer right away. The wind bit at his collar, but he didn't flinch. "No, not anymore." "Because something happened?" He gave a slight nod. 3 years ago. She left, chose someone richer, more famous. I don't blame her, but I shut everything down after that. Harper said nothing, just walked in silence beside him. Eventually, she stopped beneath a street lamp. Snow dusted her shoulders and eyelashes like glitter. "Thanks for telling me. I don't imagine you're the sharing type." Ethan halted across from her. "I didn't think I was either, but with you, it feels different." The space between them was no longer wide. Ethan looked into her eyes, deep, brown, expressive. He reached up to brush a strand of hair from her cheek. "Harper?" "Yeah?" "You're making me feel things I didn't think I could feel again." She didn't pull away. "Then show me," she whispered. Ethan leaned in. Their first kiss was quiet, slow, full of warmth. In the stillness of falling snow, time seemed to freeze around them, as if the universe wanted to protect that moment, hold it delicately in its hands. But it shattered all too soon. His phone buzzed. Ethan sighed and pulled it out, expecting a work notification. Instead, a message from an unknown number flashed on the screen. Attached was a photo, him and Harper kissing under the lamp, taken from a distance. Below it, one cold line. $5 million or the photo goes public by morning. Ethan stiffened. He handed the phone to Harper, his face calm but eyes darkened. She read it, then laughed. "Wow, paparazzi moves fast, but $5 million? I'm flattered." "I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about you. If this leaks, the press will tear through your life." Harper shrugged and kept walking. "Let them dig. I've got nothing to hide." "But you, Ethan? Are you afraid of a scandal?" Ethan looked at her, then shook his head. "Not afraid. I just don't want anyone hurting you." She reached for his hand. "Then don't fight alone. I'm not someone who needs saving. I want someone to fight beside me." Ethan looked at the hand wrapped in his, small but firm. In the snow, in the dark, he nodded, not from obligation, but because for the first time, he wanted to fight. Not for power, not for pride, but for her. The snow hadn't let up. They kept walking, hand in hand, not out of awkwardness, but because neither of them wanted to let go. The world around them had gone quiet. No cars, no footsteps, just the crunch of snow beneath their boots and the soft breath of winter wind curling around the city. Ethan had never felt this light. Nothing in his mind right now was strategy or schedule. Just one simple thought. He didn't want to let go of her hand. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "I want to see you again." Harper gave his hand a gentle squeeze. "I know." They paused beneath a street lamp that cast long shadows across the snow. Harper turned to him, her eyes steady. "We need to talk, not about feelings, about facts. That photo, the threat, I don't run from things, but I need to know what I'm walking into." Ethan nodded. "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, Bean and Leaf Cafe on 14th. Harper smiled faintly. "I like people who show up early." They parted with a squeeze that lingered, longer than a goodbye, shorter than a promise. Not because they were afraid to say farewell, but because they both knew. Tomorrow, they wouldn't just be two strangers on a blind date. Tomorrow, everything would start to matter. The morning carried a soft chill, the kind that didn't bite, but quietly reminded you it was still winter. The sky hung low, heavy with muted clouds, but the snow had finally stopped. Everything felt slow, still, as though the world had made space for honesty. Bean and Leaf Cafe sat quietly on a small corner street. Its foggy windows glowed warm from the inside. A chalkboard sign out front read, "Today's Special, Honesty with a Shot of Espresso." Ethan had arrived early. He chose a table by the window where the light fell gently across his coffee. His fingers slowly rotated the small cup, gaze resting outside, but his thoughts lingered elsewhere. On the woman with the soft laugh, the kiss under falling snow, the unfamiliar feeling of wanting to be known. Then the door opened. Harper stepped in. She wore the same coat, her hair tied up, no makeup. But something about her felt bright. She brought a quiet warmth with her, like the last ray of sun slipping through heavy clouds. "You actually came on time," she smiled, taking the seat across from him. Ethan nodded, his eyes never leaving her. He waited until she ordered her drink before speaking. "I think it's time we talked about the photo and everything it might bring." Harper didn't flinch. She nodded, calm and grounded. "I figured this wasn't just going to go away, and I didn't come here to be shielded." She hovered her hands over the latte set in front of her, then looked up, steady. "Ethan, I've been judged before, misunderstood. I've grown used to it. But the one thing I can't tolerate is being seen as fragile, someone who needs to be kept in the dark." Ethan froze for a moment. In the soft light of morning, his features seemed to ease, less guarded, less cold. "I wasn't planning to keep anything from you. I promise." He told her everything, the message, the investigation, and the name resurfacing from a place he thought he'd buried. Harper listened quietly, then gently asked, "Clara?" He nodded slowly. "No solid proof yet, but the signs, they point to her." She placed her hand on the table, not touching his, just near enough, waiting. "If it is her, what will you do?" "I'll handle it. Quietly. I won't let this touch you." Harper shook her head, her voice soft but firm. "That's not why I'm here. I don't want to be hidden behind you. If I'm in this with you, I deserve to be in it, fully. I don't want someone standing in front of me. I want someone who will walk with me." Ethan looked at her hand, not delicate, but strong. Hands that had cradled broken animals, braved the cold, and held on when others let go. "I think I misunderstood what it meant to protect someone," he said quietly. "I thought it meant blocking the wind. But maybe it means walking into it together." Harper smiled, not broadly, but warmly. "Good, because I don't do back seats." They raised their cups, not quite a vow, but something close. Outside, the clouds were beginning to lift. Inside, Ethan felt it too, a quiet shift, a softening. He didn't need Harper to save him. He needed her, because walking forward finally made sense, with her hand beside his. 2 days after their cafe conversation, Ethan sat alone in his office at the top floor of Coltech. No meetings, no performance reports, just a single thin folder resting on his desk. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. It felt familiar, like something inside him was also slowly giving way. Not loud, just persistent. A thin folder lay in front of him. He hadn't opened it yet, but he already knew what it said. Deep down, he'd known for days. He just hadn't been ready to face it. The door opened. Thomas, his longtime assistant, stepped in with a seriousness Ethan didn't often see. "It's confirmed," Thomas said, placing the folder down. "It's Clara. She hired a black market media agency, the same firm that's known for staging paparazzi setups and sending blackmail messages. The photo of you and Harper came from them. The message, too?" Ethan didn't speak. His hands were clasped, his eyes distant. Clara Hayes, the woman who once said she believed in his vision, who walked away when he refused to sell out, who told him he wasn't built to play big and left him for someone who already had it all. And now, years later, she returned, not to apologize, but to pull him down. "Her finances are in bad shape," Thomas added. "Bank debt, lawsuits, no recent contracts. Looks like she needs a win or someone else to lose." Ethan nodded slowly, not out of rage, but out of quiet exhaustion. "Send her a legal warning," he said. "No lawsuits, no press, just enough for her to know. I know, and this is her last chance." "What about Harper?" Ethan looked toward the window. Sunset light was fighting through the heavy clouds. "She doesn't need all the details, at least not yet. I don't want her to live in the shadow of someone who chose to walk away." Thomas nodded and left. Ethan sat still. He didn't hate Clara. He just mourned who she could have been if she'd chosen something other than power. That evening, Ethan found himself at Harper's door. He hadn't planned to come, but her face kept appearing in his mind, honest, steady, and he knew he couldn't stay silent. Harper opened the door. No surprise, no questions, just a quiet invitation to step inside. They sat on her small couch, warm light from a corner lamp softening the space between them. Ethan told her everything, plain, simple, unfiltered. Harper listened, no interruptions, no fear. Then she reached for his hand. "Thank you for not keeping it from me." Ethan gently squeezed her hand. "I didn't want you to carry the weight of my past, but I also don't want to move forward without you in it." She smiled, calm, understanding, and kind. "Then let me walk beside you. Clara doesn't scare me. The past doesn't scare me. Being left out, that's the only thing I don't think I could take." And in that moment, something inside Ethan softened. For the first time in a long time, love didn't feel like something he had to protect. It felt like something worth standing beside. After that quiet night, with nothing but warm light and trust between them, something shifted. No more hesitations, no more questions. They had crossed the invisible line between getting to know and choosing to stay. And for the first time in his carefully constructed world, Ethan Cole, the man who built an empire on control, chose to pause the business calls, the deadlines, the numbers, so he could step into a different kind of world. Her world. Sunday morning was gentler than usual. The sky was clear, the air still carried the softness of late winter. Sunlight stretched through bare trees, casting long shadows on the quiet street where Heart's Haven Animal Rescue stood, the place Harper had poured her heart into for years. Ethan parked a few blocks away, then walked the rest. No suit, no driver, just a white button-up shirt, gray jacket, and a box of hot coffee in hand. He saw Harper from a distance. She was tying down a tarp over one of the outdoor dog pens, sleeves rolled up, a smudge of mud across her blouse. When she spotted him, her smile widened in surprise. "You sure you're in the right place?" "No boardroom meetings here," she teased, brushing hair from her cheek. Ethan lifted the coffee box like a peace offering. "I've spent long enough in my world. I figured it's time I see yours." She paused for a beat, a flicker of something soft crossing her eyes. Then that smile, the one that always made him feel oddly safe, returned. "Well then, come meet the chaos." The inside of the rescue center wasn't fancy. It was old, worn, but alive. Rows of kennels lined the walls, some holding animals curled up in blankets, others filled with noise, barking, whining, scratching. A young volunteer tried to explain to a panicked couple why chocolate was not a suitable dog treat. A fluffy dog named Max, recently rescued from a collapsed building, leapt into Ethan's arms and refused to let go. "Max thinks you're part of the furniture now," Harper said, gently prying the dog off. "He's got good instincts." Ethan's laugh was quiet but real. Everywhere he looked, there was something imperfect. A three-legged cat, a blind puppy, a trembling kitten curled in a corner. But what struck him wasn't the brokenness. It was the care. Every animal had a name, a blanket, a story someone remembered. Harper walked him through each case, each scar, each rescue. She told him about the pit bull who waited for its owner for 6 days in the snow, the kitten someone shaved because it shed too much. "I can't fix all of them," Harper said, voice low, "but they deserve to know someone still sees them." Ethan didn't respond immediately, but something in his chest shifted. Around midday, they sat on the old front steps of the center, sandwiches in hand. No table, no white napkins, just sun, grass, and the wheezy snore of a dog asleep at their feet. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, came shyly up to them. She held out a folded piece of paper, cheeks pink with nerves. "For Miss Harper and Mr. Curly Hair," she whispered, then ran off. Harper and Ethan exchanged a puzzled look, then unfolded the paper. It was a child's drawing, Harper in her white coat, next to a man with curly hair standing beside a happy-looking dog. At the top, in wobbly letters, "Ms. Harper and Mr. Curly Hair, nice people." Ethan laughed, not a business laugh, not polite, just soft, honest. He ran his thumb along the edge of the paper like it was made of silk. "Curly hair?" He raised an eyebrow. "She's one of our regulars," Harper said, smiling. "Her cat went missing once. We found it under her mom's car. I guess she's officially named you now." Ethan kept looking at the drawing. There was no branding, no ambition. Just crayons, kindness, and a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. As the day wore on, Harper pulled off her gloves and turned to him. "So, what did you think?" He didn't speak right away. His eyes drifted toward the center, the small building, the sleeping animals, the hum of a quiet kind of life. "I don't think I've ever really belonged anywhere," he said softly. "But here, I think I'm starting to." Harper didn't respond. She just looked at him for a long moment, then gave the smallest nod. Ethan sat back, hands resting loosely on his knees. No contracts, no board votes, just a feeling in his chest that maybe, just maybe, this was what home could feel like. And maybe it wasn't about power or perfection. Maybe it was about someone believing you were still worth loving, just the way you were. That afternoon, the sky was a pale shade of gray, soft as silk, quietly covering the city in its early winter hush. Snow was falling lightly, dusting shoulders and rooftops with gentle flakes that made everything feel slower, quieter, almost sacred. In the city's Central Park, a fundraising event for the community veterinary center was underway. Strings of warm golden lights were wrapped around wooden beams, long tables lined with donated treats and hot cocoa. At the front stood a small stage made of old pine, modest but steady. People gathered with scarves wrapped tight and hands cupped around steaming mugs, standing close under the soft drizzle of snow. Harper had been moving non-stop since morning, greeting guests, fixing decorations, tying a child's scarf that had come undone. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, eyes bright with effort and joy. She had no idea that today her world was about to shift in the gentlest, most unexpected way. Ethan arrived just as the event reached its peak. No tailored suit, no assistants trailing behind. Just a dark wool coat, snowflakes melting in his curls, and an expression that was both calm and utterly certain. He stepped onto the stage just as the music faded. "Good evening, everyone," he began, his voice steady and warm. "My name is Ethan Cole, and today I'm not here as a CEO." Heads turned, a few people whispered, recognizing the man on stage. But no one interrupted. "I'm standing here as someone who's learned that success isn't measured in numbers, but in what you choose to do with it." He paused, then smiled gently. "I'm proud to announce the launch of the Harper Community Veterinary Fund, a long-term commitment to support this center and others like it across the city." Applause rose from every corner of the park. Harper, standing near the edge of the crowd, froze. Her hands lowered slowly, her eyes fixed on him, the man she never expected to step into her world, let alone stand for it. Then Ethan turned toward her, searching until his gaze found hers. "And I have one more thing to say." The crowd went silent. Even the snow seemed to fall slower. "I love her," he said, clear, unwavering. "Not for what she does, not for how she makes me look. I love her, because in a world that always asks for more, she reminds me enough is enough." Harper burst into laughter, not from disbelief, but from something far deeper. Her eyes shimmered, her voice shook just a little as she stepped onto the stage and took the microphone. "Well then," she said, scanning the crowd with mock seriousness, "I guess I'll have to bring him to work with me from now on." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Snow kept falling. But in their hearts, winter had already begun to thaw. The fundraiser ended with warm laughter, soft yellow lights, and hands held tightly under the falling snow. No more questioning glances. No more whispers behind their backs. Just two people, standing quietly in a world of their own, where one honest confession had been enough to silence the noise outside. And then, as if the universe had decided its part was done, Clara disappeared. No response, no retaliation, just silence after the final legal warning was delivered. Almost as if even the past knew when it had lost its hold. The snow was still falling, not heavy but soft, like a blanket gently lowering itself over the city. It dusted rooftops, sidewalks, and the quiet street where Ethan and Harper now walked hand in hand. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Everything worth saying was already there, in the way their fingers laced together, in the calm rhythm of their steps, in the shared breath between them. Harper chuckled softly as a gust of wind caught her hair, tossing it into her face. Ethan reached over to fix her hat, his fingers brushing her cheek. He didn't look away. That face, familiar now, but still new enough to make his heart feel light. The face he had once watched from across a snow-covered sidewalk. And now, the face of home. "There was a time," Ethan murmured, his voice almost lost in the wind, "when I didn't think I'd ever get out of my own walls." Harper glanced over, smiling gently. "And now?" He stopped walking. They stood in front of a quiet little shop, its window glowing warm from inside, their reflection caught in the glass. Two silhouettes wrapped in winter and something deeper. "Now I know," he said. "Some people don't need a place to hide. They just need a person to stay." Harper didn't reply with words. She simply tightened her grip on his hand. Ethan looked at her then, not as a CEO, Not as a man who had built something big, but as someone who had finally found what he'd unknowingly searched for all along. Not an office, he said softly. Not a boardroom. Not a title. He paused. I think your heart is the first place I've ever wanted to call home. Harper laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that didn't need approval. She slipped her arm around him, leaned her head on his shoulder, like she'd done a dozen times before, but this time it meant everything. Then don't be late, she whispered. Dinner's at 7. Ethan smiled, and deep in his chest something settled, something that had been restless for years. After so many days filled with urgent emails and boardroom tension, he finally heard something new. The sound of peace knocking quietly at the door of his life. No more Clara, no more ghosts lurking in the corners of memory. Only Harper. And in this winter, where everything once felt cold and distant, he finally found his spring.